31 episodes this year. So that's pretty exciting. We're getting up there. I'm your host, David Jones. I'm joined today by only Jephren Perez. Kev's not here.
Good morning, Dave.
Kev's camping. Or something like that. Anywho, how you been doing this week, Kev? Or I'm sorry, Jeff. I just called you Kev.
Yeah, no, we're used to having Kev on here.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's weird not having him.
Weird.
But I'm doing well. It's been a little bit of a crazy week, just in life in general, but also lots of really cool, fun, rare stuff going on too. So I've been keeping up with that, playing a little Titanfall yesterday, just one match, and pretty much that.
Titanfall 2 beta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pre-alpha.
Pre-alpha. Or whatever you want to
As
call
they're
it.
calling it. I don't know why that's become such a thing for them to call stuff pre-alpha, because I don't know how you can be playing something and call that pre-alpha. That should just be alpha.
Honestly, I think the reason they're kind of doing that now is because people get so hung up on things they see in betas. They're like, "Oh, but it's beta. This is almost done." And by branding it as pre-alpha, people get less upset if there's something they don't like.
Probably. I mean, that's probably what it comes down to. It's probably a marketing gimmick, but it just is frustrating to anyone who understands general terminology for software, because pre-alpha would technically be like concept, and this is definitely further than a concept.
Yeah, this is like a proof of concept thing or something.
This is definitely beta, like in standard software. Like, oh well.
Or the tech test.
Anyway.
They don't even using the word beta. This is a tech test.
Tech
and
test.
It says pre-alpha watermarked in the
as
corner.
much marketing spin as they can. Yeah. But our pals at Platonic did the same thing with ukulele, and in all honesty, that compared to what we saw in the trailer for ukulele, that really did look pre-alpha. Like,
right.
It didn't look like they had. Well, I mean, obviously the level was specifically designed to just look geometric and standard.
I feel like, I mean, the level could have been considered to be a pre-alpha level because it's basically a test level in some ways.
That's probably the best way to classify
but,
it.
Yeah, the engine itself wasn't.
Yeah, like, let's face it, that's a very optimized, well set up, tweaked game engine. But that's okay. We know what it is. We know what they're getting at.
We know what's going on.
Doesn't affect us as long as the mainstream media isn't writing up these scornful reviews about how awful this was or how terrible this was. And it's like, dude, it's a beta, it's an alpha. Just let it go.
Yeah, I think that's really probably the point about it. Is just like we're tired of people bitching about stuff that we're clearly going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So,
anywho, so what have you been up to this week? How are you doing?
Not too bad. Just been working. I have a side thing on the some side work on the side I've been doing. So that's been.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's actually. I should probably mention that we had some audio issues last week where my audio dropped, and that was partially the reason because I had a lot of things. I was using my computer for way too many things. Let's put it that way. Because I'm doing some work on the side that involves the use of my computer, and my computer ended up being very loud and ended up running out of hard drive space during the recording. So,
oops.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we're all good this week.
Hopefully. If anything happens, I'm sorry. I'm still doing it, but I'm managing it a lot better right now. I made sure I cleared out enough hard drive space, and it's also less hot in here, so things aren't running quite as loud as it was last week. So that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I guess you sent all of your heat wave over to us because it was 102 yesterday.
Oh my god, it's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, it was it's miserable, and we don't have air
102 in Oregon.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it happens in August. Like, a lot of people don't expect the Pacific Northwest to get too hot, but it gets really hot up here. Where I grew up in Southeast Washington, we would routinely get up to like 110 in like the last 2 weeks of July, first couple weeks of August. Yeah, it was. But we always had air conditioning. Here, not so much.
Yeah, so I don't really ever remember it. I mean, I would remember hot days, but I never remember it being really like consistently hot. I mean, it's
you
been
guys had
a while
like
since
the Olympic Peninsula caught and the rainforest up there probably
Mm-hmm.
regulated the
I think it's
temperatures.
partially too because at least where I lived, it's very forested, even in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always like a lot of like the feeling of really being beat down by the sun is less because there's so much shade. So even when the
Yeah.
temperature gets up there, it was never quite. I don't know. Like I feel like it's hotter where I live now in Michigan because there's much less shade and it's just I feel
Yeah.
like I'm being baked all the time.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I've been been sitting around just trying to keep cool. Which, when you're hot and irritable, it's even more frustrating to play like Titanfall.
Right.
And I only played one round, so I loved the first game. And we've talked about this a little bit on our staff chat, but Kev and I are both of the Titanfall 1
Yeah.
love,
You're the purists.
and you're more into the tweaks that have been made at the request
Yeah.
of standard FPS fans, I guess.
Well, you have to admit, I don't want to get too much. I don't want to bring this argument too much to the logcast, but Respawn and pretty much everyone else is very much aware that their populations really dropped off. They developed a hardcore
Right.
following, but it wasn't very big. And if they didn't
Yeah.
make any tweaks, the same thing probably would have happened.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree to that, and I'm sure that's what it is and why it happened. But oh well. I mean,
I still think
what can
it's
you do?
like I've played maybe about 4 or 5 matches, and I still think it still feels to me like a really polished and balanced FPS.
Hmm.
The focus is definitely different. It's not
Yeah.
exactly the same as the first one, and it's probably going to upset some purists, but I think it's still one of the very polished FPS, and it feels
Yeah.
to me like a lot more meaty than the first one. Like
Well, that's good.
yeah, some of the levels
And
I felt in the first one, I felt like, I mean, it didn't feel like they were constructed with very much assets and geometry. It felt like
right.
they were designed decently in some regards, depending on your playstyle, but they
Hmm.
weren't the most interesting to look at in some ways.
Right.
And
There's one or two that were stand out, and then there was several that were just
yeah,
kind of big squares.
yeah, a
Flat.
lot of squares. And
Had a
from
couple
what I've
buildings
seen
in
so
there.
far in Titanfall 2, it reminds me a lot more of what you'd expect out of the guys that made it. Like, it reminds me of some of the
Yeah.
Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 1 levels that these guys worked on previously.
Yep.
So,
Well, it's good.
yep.
So I'm hoping that the more I play it, the more I'll get used to it, and I'll like it as much as the first one. So we'll see.
We'll see. I'll probably pick it up if you guys are all going to pick it up. I will because I want to have a FPS to play with you guys. Because
Cool.
I know you guys love Titanfall, first Titanfall a lot, and I don't really like it that much. But if we could all sort of agree that this one's okay, then maybe we'll
Yeah.
all play it.
That would be nice.
All
Oh, we
right.
still got to play Rocket League too.
Oh yes, Rocket League. As soon as Kev
Good times there.
gets some Rocket
Have
League.
you played that much since you got it, or have you
A little
gotten into it
bit.
yet?
I think I'd have a lot more
Okay.
fun with you guys though, because I'm just playing against randos who are way better than me. And
Yeah,
I feel like I'm dragging my team.
That's kind of how I got into it. Was playing with Craig from Rare
Mm-hmm.
and Kev actually that first preview weekend. I know
Right.
I think you hopped on for a couple
I
matches.
did, yeah. I did
But
terribly.
that's kind of how I started getting into it, and then I was good enough by the end of that weekend. So like 3 days of just playing it all day. I was good enough to go play against the randos that are just ridiculously good.
Yeah, at least I think I at least know how to do how to do it now. I got the controls down a little bit,
Yeah.
which I didn't
And
so much on the
the
weekend.
next biggest thing after getting the controls down is getting the ball physics down and knowing where to position yourself to make a hit when it's like airborne or like to try and fly. I've just started figuring out flying. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a surprisingly deep game for as simplistic as it actually is. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's fun.
It's
I would love
silly.
to see Rare take on a competitive sports kart racer type thing, just because they haven't done anything like that.
The only thing I would add to Rocket League,
Thank you.
I think it'd be kind of fun if there was maybe like weapon power ups every now and again. I think
They're adding those in the next update.
Are they really? Oh, awesome.
September update. Yep.
Good job,
Yep. They
guys.
announced that. So that's gonna be crazy. They've shown like weird ones like spike balls and other like boxer gloves and like kind of cartoony
Oh, that's gonna be good.
nuts and bolts style weapons. Actually, very similar to that. So it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
But yeah.
Oh,
So
in other random
Shall we-
Xbox news, I
yeah.
was gonna ask you guys if
Shall
you
we move?
tried
I
this
mean,
out yet, but
our rare news is going to all be the whole topic of the episode.
Yeah,
So.
pretty much. And honestly, I think at this point, general Xbox news relates to Rare. But
Yeah, pretty well. They're tight in there with the community of Xbox first party devs.
I know you guys have had the preview update for a while, so I mean you've had the capability for background music for a while. But I think it was yesterday that finally the Groove app, which is what everyone's actually going to use, finally completely updated to support background music.
Yep.
And
It's that one for sure, and then I think there's a podcast one and possibly the official Pandora one.
I believe I think Pandora was first.
Okay.
But it was like irritating me at first because I got all excited for the update, and then I realized that the Groove app hadn't been updated yet, and then I was like, oh, so actually I can't use it. Never mind.
Even on the preview program, the Groove one wasn't updated until a few days after the OS was updated. So like we could do background music with one of those third-party ones, but the Groove one didn't get the update until a couple days later, which was really weird. But it's been pretty cool because I've got a lot of like video game music in my OneDrive folders, and so like I can just play Rare music, and like while I play Rocket League, it's pretty cool. It's fun.
Yeah, I really like. I know a lot of people are like, well, it's not as cool as it was before because you can't save the songs to your hard drive. It's like, well, if you have enough OneDrive space, you can just dump your whole way more than you could ever fit on your hard drive into your OneDrive, and then just play music out there.
And use playlists and all that other stuff straight from OneDrive. Like you can configure them. It's great. Like they've got a really good system set up.
I haven't really played around with it a whole lot yet, but I was just very happy. And just the app itself actually works better now. The old Groove music app was terrible. I'm sorry.
It was awful.
It was so clunky and slow. And now it actually works like very similar to the Windows 10 version, which actually functioned.
It's the same bits. Yeah.
So
probably 90% the same code.
No more clunkiness. Cool. I can actually just like shuffle all my music, which I couldn't even do before. So yeah, I'm very happy. I feel like this new sort of. I feel like this is kind of like almost like a relaunch of the Xbox One brand with the Xbox One S, which
I mean it's a PC for your TV, and that's a huge step.
Yeah, because like everything that like should have been there at launch, or a lot of people thought should have been there at launch, is kind of like coming with this relaunch, and I'm hoping it works out for them as well as. Do you remember when Sony kind of did their relaunch for the PS3, and that was kind of like the whole turnaround for Sony?
Yeah.
To me, that kind of reminds me of this because that was the time that they redid their logo so it didn't look like a Spider-Man knockoff. They made it familiar to PlayStation. They did a slim console release. I think trophies had started a little bit before that, but that was pretty much around the same time when like all games started to have trophies and an achievement system, and PSN stopped being a joke. So you can kind of parallel that to now. Like maybe this is going to be sort of like the maybe the turnaround for Microsoft. I mean, obviously they weren't doing as bad as Sony was during those first few years of last gen.
Early PS3, yeah.
But I would like it to see a little bit more neck and neck console race this time, and it really kind of has
I think that's where it's heading. I mean, the One S has been extremely popular. It's reviewed very well, and people who didn't have an Xbox at all are picking that up right now. And then, the people that couldn't really afford the Xbox previously are picking up the L.O.G.
I think white was a good choice too because it makes people think of the 360.
Right. Well, and Apple products and just that sort of like it's a high quality piece of hardware.
Yeah.
It's a mental thing, but yeah, it's what Nintendo did with the Wii, and I don't know. It's
how you have it be visually associated with those things instead of kind of looking like, unfortunately, a VCR.
Yeah.
Makes people a lot more, like, oh, this reminds me of that, 360 game they could play.
Sleek.
It's a good marketing move, and I hope they do well. And I have one coming in the mail for me today, on a slightly bragged note. I'm so glad I'm jealous. Still find the 2 terabyte version. Like, I was waiting. Like, I should have. Like, I had to buy it before I really had the money to.
Because,
no, I mean, I'll have it paid off like really soon, but I was going to wait till Friday because I saw GameStop still has them in stock, and then I checked it again on like Thursday, and then they were all gone. So it was like, shoot, if I'm gonna find one of these, I gotta pull the trigger like right now. So I just bought it off Amazon with a credit card, and then I'm gonna take all my stuff in, my original stuff into GameStop and get it for cash. And
Cool.
yeah, at the end of the day, it should be about the same. I'm not gonna like incur any like debt out of it, but I just had to get creative a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. I
Mhm.
wish I could do that. I gotta be disciplined and keep my old one in as long as I
Yeah.
can. But
No, I'm
hopefully,
crazy. I should not be doing this, but I am.
I
It
understand.
just
I mean,
looks so much nicer, and I want one of the new controllers anyway. That's $60 right there.
right. Yep.
And even to me, the 2 terabyte internal hard drive is a big selling point. Because now
It's huge.
I can just throw literally everything. I moved everything from my external to from my internal to my external, and I could copy the entire contents of that to my new Xbox now with still room to spare.
Sweet.
And then have an additional 2 terabyte hard drive if I ever run out again.
Yeah. Which I mean, maybe you will and maybe you won't. Like
Yeah.
we're at a point where the generation will probably just get a few more big games and just maybe some yearly iterations that you might put on there, an Assassin's Creed next year, or the new Call of Duty or Titanfall or whatever. But not like how it was the first couple years where it's like, oh, a bunch of stuff's coming out and I need to get them all because there's not much out for the system.
Right. No,
For me, that's how it is anyway. I know you guys seem to get a little more. You guys seem to get more games than I do. I kind of just get the games with gold and then one big blockbuster a year.
Yeah, I do get too many games. Not probably as much as I had a period when I got like literally everything. I'm not quite doing that anymore because I just don't have time. And then they never stagger the releases, so they're always like freaking all at like fall within a period of 3 months. It's like 10 good games.
Right. Oh, it's the worst. I love gaming, but I find myself not able to sit through big, long, epic games the way I used to,
Mm-hmm.
and so I gravitate towards online multiplayer games or games with like short campaigns like Call of
Right.
Duty. So, I Assassin's Creed being like maybe the longest game I've played in any recent time. Um,
It depends on the game too, and some of the longer
Right.
ones, the really good ones, I still like to pick up.
right.
But what I'll do is that it's not like I'm gonna play that game and finish it before I buy any others. I'll like
Yeah.
consistently go back to it until I eventually progress all the way through it over a period of like 4 months or something.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
It's kind of what ends up happening to me when I do get those, but in general, I stick to Minecraft and Rocket League,
right.
which is good. They're both fun games.
I think the
But
longest
I
game I
think
like. Go
I'll
ahead.
probably just spend most of my time playing Sea of Thieves whenever that is
Yeah.
available.
I'm sure we all will.
And speaking of Sea of Thieves, Gamescom was this week,
It was.
and Rare was showing it off in person and through Twitch.
They were. Those were some good streams. I mean,
Those were some good streams.
I didn't get a chance to go to all of them. I think you probably did. You make it into all
I
of the
did
streams?
all but one.
All
There
but
was one
one?
I slept through because it was at 2 in the morning,
Oh, okay.
and I had stayed up the previous night at 2 in the morning. But the rest of them I was at, and they were great. And a little community almost sprung up out of it, just in the chat, just people that were regularly there and share the same passion as kind of we
Mhm.
do about the game. By the end of it, you had a few people who'd been in all the streams. They were able to help Emma Bridle, the community social media manager now. They were helping her answer questions, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Like, I almost wish there was a way to like sticky like the commonly asked questions at the top because it was literally like
Yeah.
everyone just come in. It's like, so when's the game coming out? When's the beta? And like all these things.
The date is TBD. The game world will be big. There will be hand-to-hand combat, and blah blah blah. There will be weather. That was maybe one of the best new official tidbits we got, was that there will be in-game weather. Because so far all they've shown off is this night and day cycle that looks really nice,
Okay.
but
See,
just clear skies.
I didn't realize that hadn't been talked about yet. I always just kind of assumed there would be.
I think it was, yeah, it's one of those things like Assassin's Creed. Like you assume that there's gonna be storms and nautical nightmares, but they hadn't officially said anything prior to these Twitch streams. So it was cool to kind of get that official confirmation.
Awesome.
I don't think there's any other major news confirmed in the Twitch chats that I can think of. They did officially say that you can choose from different shanties, but again, I think that's something that a lot of people assumed. But
Right.
the E3 demo only had, or the Gamescom E3 demo only had, is it Ride or Fly to the Valkyries? I think it's Ride of the Valkyries.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they've confirmed there will be more than just that one, which we kind of knew because the Skullduggers, which is their pirate band that's been performing with them, has played multiple songs that were exclusive to the game, so it would make sense that those would be options.
I think for me the biggest thing was actually seeing it through Twitch at like the correct frame rate.
Yeah.
Like it was insane how different that was.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you've already seen it. You got to actually play it, which But to me, like the difference between seeing it through that at full frame rate through that Twitch stream and just seeing like the videos of it, like it just makes everything look so much better. The water, everything. It's like the visuals to me with that extra frame rate just took it to like a completely different level. And I was like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing.
Yeah. No, it looks incredible at 60 frames, and I think they're pushing the console to 60 frames. They did confirm that the demo at the show floor was a PC build, but I think we were playing the Xbox build. They made me kind of doubt myself. I'm pretty sure we were playing an Xbox build at the studio, but I actually can't confirm that because their little booths that they had us set up in, if you looked behind them, they had both a PC and an Xbox set up behind each booth. So I'm not sure.
I think it'll hit 60 frames. I mean,
I think so too. It's not like it's not to say that it's a technical slouch, but it's not pushing those super crazy advanced high res super whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's going for a certain look, which is always going to make things run a bit better. And I don't see why you couldn't. As long as it depends on what your focus is, because there's always the trade-off between resolution and frame rate. If you decide 60 is most important, above all you got to do is like do something like a dynamic resolution or something
adaptive,
like that, or lower it a
and
little bit.
They've got the technical prowess to definitely.
If they decide that that's the most important thing, which I'm starting to get to the boat where I think that frame rate kind of trumps all, especially seeing how well the tricks you can use to get around doing like a full 1080 frame buffer.
Yep.
I think a good example is this. I was actually just watching a Digital Foundry article about it too, but Titanfall 2 on Xbox One. What native resolution do you think that is, out of curiosity? Without, I assume you haven't read anything yet.
No, I have not read anything.
Okay, just by playing it, if you could hazard a guess at what you say it was, what you would think it was.
In the 900s. I forget what the standard is if you go below 1080, but I would guess it's 900 something.
It's 720, lower than the first one.
Oh shit! Wow,
Doesn't that? Yeah, apparently Digital Foundry thinks they're using some kind of crazy filtering or really extreme anti-aliasing or something that kind of reconstructs the missing pixels. Wow. But the frame buffer itself is only 720. I can't believe it looks that good. I imagine they'll probably when it comes out they'll do a more in-depth analysis, but I've never seen a 720 game look that good. And it's kind of a good example of the tricks people are starting to develop to get around that.
Oh yeah, and the technology just kind of keeps evolving. I think, if I recall, and I could be wrong on this, but I think the first Titanfall tech demo that they did, because I don't know if you remember, they did basically the same thing with Titanfall 1, where they put out the whatever that oil drilling map is, but they did the same thing. It was a much lower resolution, and I think they pushed it up to about 900 whatever for the final build.
It was closer to 800. It was a really weird resolution. It was like 789
it was
or something like that. So it was really weird. the resolution they picked. I mean, they did that for like the Halo games back in the day too. They had really weird resolutions. So
I'm not for a fast moving game like that, a first person game where you're literally moving the entire time. I'm more forgiving on resolution personally. People bitch and moan about how the Xbox One's first batch of games, most of them weren't 1080p. I think only Forza was, and I don't know. I didn't hardly even notice or care. I was aware of it, but frame rate, like you said, frame rate is what matters.
Yeah, it can depend too, in the way that whatever they're doing with Titanfall 2 makes it not look like the mess that 720p can be. The main problem with
Could,
720p, especially for FPSs, is draw distance, and it's a lot. Having played,
Mm.
I guess a good example would be Call of Duty Ghosts, because I've played it on both.
Mm-hmm.
Long distance engagements are a lot harder on the Xbox
Right,
One
because
version because everything
smaller
starts to look really
pixels.
aliased and
Yeah.
and blurred when you get it long distance.
Yep.
But
That makes sense. So.
yeah, but whatever black magic they're doing for Titanfall 2 to get a 720 frame buffer to look that good, I guess more power
Yeah.
to them because it looked like 900p to me. That would have been my guess too.
Right. Yeah. That was
And
kind of what I was
I was
thinking.
like, wow, what are
It,
they doing?
I'm curious what the final tech specs for Sea of Thieves is going to be. I'm looking forward to Digital Foundry breaking that game down because it just looks amazing for what it is. And I mean, just that water, like.
Yeah, my guess, I think they'll probably hit about 900p. I don't think they'll be able to pull off a full 1080 frame buffer with that, but that's fine. I'm hoping they go the Halo 5 route and do the dynamic resolution because then when Scorpio comes down the line,
Hmm.
with it'll at least hit 1080p all the time. And
Right.
if they do a patch, which then at that point they could simply do a patch to unlock the resolution to go even higher, and then the Scorpio could
Hmm.
play it at 4K.
Right.
So
And using Unreal and the fact that the architecture is the same and that Scorpio's literally designed for that, like
mhm.
I don't see any reason why Rare wouldn't do that, or that they're not even because they're building a PC build with it right now. It may just already be in there, and just
Right, and I mean
detect or
all
whatever.
the assets look very very scalable, especially going with the more
Yes,
cartoon aesthetic.
they they showed us several assets up close. It was pretty cool. I guess I am remembering that those are probably, well, obviously anything that hasn't been shown we can't talk about, but like even stuff that had already been shown in concept or
Right,
you know,
and
for
I'm
example, the
pretty sure it's standard practice nowadays to at the very least do everything in 4K. I've heard about some people even
right.
doing 8K assets just because why not? We don't know what the
If
future can
you're
hold. If we want to
yeah,
remaster this
if
10
you
years
want
down
to
the line, then we'll have 8K assets or whatever,
yeah,
So it
if you
makes
get the
more
processing power
sense.
and the the machine set up to do it, why not?
Hmm.
I who was it? They just did an interview with I'm trying to think if it was one of the interns. It was one of the news articles with the welcoming the new interns on the Rare website, but somebody was talking about the machine they get to use. I think it's one of the interns who's working on the engine team, um, but I could be mistaken. But one of the Rare employees was talking about the system specs they're working with, and it's like, they're working with like 40 cores on I don't know 16 or 32 gigs of RAM
Right.
and 800 meg internet, and it's just like holy crap.
Oh man,
Yeah.
the future.
Like we connected to the Wi-Fi there, and it was like I had a Windows mobile update come through while I was there, downloaded it like super fast.
It's really insane how things are now in comparison to like 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
I
No,
remember
exactly.
I
Like,
remember like reading this article about my people saying like in the future you could download a movie in like 2 minutes and watch it or 5 minutes I think maybe it says and like watch it.
right.
I'm like oh cool that's neat.
Now I
Now it
can
seems
instantly
like oh yeah cool I can like go on Netflix and do that now.
and the
Just
buffer.
through
Yeah, the buffer
streaming.
starts immediately, and then it downloads in the background.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
but
Well, I
even
remember my freshman year of college, we got 1.5 meg internet, and that was blazing fast for the
mm,
time. God.
yeah. I remember my sad days with 56 mode K modem all too well. It was
Oh
very
yeah.
sad times.
Uh, my parents that I grew up with, my mom and my stepdad, my mom was really into technology. My stepdad hated technology, so we were very behind in the times in computer and internet.
Hmm.
So like we didn't get our first internet enabled computer until 1999. It was dial up and it was an e-machines with a Celeron
Oh
processor,
god.
so it was not anything. No, it was a piece of shit. But um, I think we finally got cable like in 2002 or 2003. Got broadband for the first time. And it was probably like 500K or 768 or whatever K. It was still pretty bad.
Yeah. Did you ever use you remember Net Zero?
Yeah, we had CompuServe the whole time we had dial up.
God. Yeah, we started with AOL, I think, which was terrible.
Which pretty much everybody did, yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to like some AT&T dial-up, and at some point we couldn't afford that, and then we went with net zero free internet like indefinitely.
Oh my god.
It
Nice.
was terrible.
Yeah, CompuServe was purchased by AOL, so it was like we had all the perks of AOL, like the keyword search and their kind of tailored front page, but for whatever reason it was still branded as CompuServe, so that's what we had.
Yep. Good times.
God. It's crazy that kids today will never understand the dial-up struggle.
Yes. Remember when you're like, you didn't realize someone was on the phone, and then you tried to go on the internet,
right?
And then you're just like right in your ear, and trying to talk to someone.
Mm-hmm. Ours was, and it didn't. It was weird because it didn't seem to happen at everybody's house, but ours, if you picked up the phone while someone was on the internet, it kicked them off the internet.
Right.
Ugh, God, it's a nightmare.
Oh man, it sounds so ridiculous now.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
And it was like if you were trying to like go on the internet at night and everybody's in bed, it would still just play really loud through the modem and not through the freaking like computer speakers, at least on ours. So it was like there was no sneaking onto the internet. Like you were giving yourself away.
Yeah.
Anyway, reminiscing days of yore.
Yes, this is us old 30-year-olds and our internet woes.
Yeah. So other Sea of Thieves news or rare news this week.
Well,
let's finish out the Sea of Thieves stuff. Maybe,
yeah. Kev said that he wanted to pass on a little bit about. He was going to record a message. We didn't get a chance to do that, but he said he wanted to pass on a message that he thought that Rare's Twitch stream was awesome and that Emma has the patience of a saint.
Yes. I will echo those sentiments. Like I don't know how she does it. She got to so many of the questions in the chat, and I mean, the first day of the stream, I don't know if you were in there at the time, but she had turned on the chat delay. Where
I was in
90
there for
seconds. That one. And I understand how that helps her and the team specifically her to kind of get through and get to as many questions as possible, but as a viewer it is actually really frustrating, and you want to say something to somebody or comment on something, you can't, and she I think realized and heard us loud and clear that we were not fans of that, and she endured the full chat experience, the remaining streams, all of them, and she did really, 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 really well at getting to as many questions as possible, answering as thoroughly as possible, like more than just like yes, no, maybe. Like she was giving detailed. Yeah, she probably had a cheat copy paste thing open.
I'm sure because people keep asking the same questions over and over again.
Standard. Yeah, I mean that's standard, but it was. She did an incredible job.
Yeah, she did, and really, I mean, as far as I expected it to be a lot worse because Twitch chats are usually terrible and just full of horrible people and things. But other than with a few things here and there, it was really a very well-behaved Twitch chat.
It reminds me of the forums. Like, it's just amazing the type of people that are, into this game. It's not just these internet trolls and douchebags. There's a couple.
I mean, I didn't think I see any people, like, going and just, like, finding ways to use, like, different characters to, like, draw a penis or something. That's what I was expecting.
Right, yeah. Right. No, there was, from my memory, the second chat, the one where they had unlocked the timing thing. There was a guy who just, I don't know, it's weird to me that he took the time to go into the chat to complain about the game and like how terrible this is and blah blah blah, and how old Rare would have never done anything like this. I was like, he's like, they would have made Banjo 3, and I was like, I was telling people like, don't feed the trolls, don't engage, and he finally just tipped me past my tipping point, and I just like laid into the guy and shut him down. And I was like, oh yeah, because Rare didn't try something new with Donkey Kong. They didn't try something new with GoldenEye, Cameo, Viva Pinata. And he's like, oh, well, they should be making Viva Pinata 3. I was like, shut up, dude.
You realize that the main, creative guys on Sea of Thieves, Greg Mills, did, like, all those other games.
Right. People are just ignorant. And it's just too bad that they have to be so negative about it. Because it's like, it's one thing to be ignorant about it, and there's people I've talked to online, in various Rare discussions, and it's just like, well, actually, this this happened or these people did this or whatever. And um, there's one specific example, and I won't call this person out, but like he was like, "Oh, I had no idea. That's really cool." Blah blah blah. He was one of the people that thought Microsoft had kind of forced them to do the Kinect thing. That it was sort of a directive from the executives to show off the hardware. I was like, well, actually, no. That was the core people decided. The leadership at the time chose that. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." Rather than being confrontational, it was refreshing.
Yeah.
So
Some people are, and I think there's just there's that kind of weird perception that you have to hate on Rare now. I mean, it's less.
It's the trendy cool thing
It's
to
not
do.
quite as much as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
As people,
Well,
I think
it's a
Rare
lot.
Replay and both Sea of Thieves are helping with that. There's still some people who want to cling on to that though because they're obsessed with Banjo 3, even though they're getting Banjo 3 in the form of ukulele.
Right. Like they just need to shut up about it.
Yeah,
even if they did Banjo 3, they'd either have to hire Grant and Grant Kirkhope and Chris Sutherland on contract, or change their voices and have a different composer.
And it's at this point, to me, Platonic's making Banjo 3, so if Rare made it too, it's like, that would not be very much variety. Wouldn't it be better to get this cool pirate game with these crazy graphics and concepts you've never seen or played before, and get Banjo 3, or do you want to play the same game twice?
Right. And it's just, at this point, people just even need to kind of get over Banjo 3. Like, the first two are great. The third one is great in a different way, in my opinion. And, then there's the supplemental ones, which are, whatever, we include them, but they're not, obviously, to the level of the console versions. But people just need to accept that franchise was excellent. It, not to say that it's dead, but it doesn't need anything right now, especially with Yooka-Laylee coming out. Like, just, there's no need for it. And, the humor, the character, you're just going to get that with Yooka-Laylee, and you can fall in love with those characters, and then Platonic will continue to make those as a shared universe. Like, so I don't know what people feel the urge to bitch about with Rare. And it was like Rare made nothing but new games for years. That the first few times they did sequels was probably, I don't know, a couple of different Battletoads, RC Pro-Am 2,
maybe
and
Solar, maybe the Jetman series, Solar Jetman.
Yeah, I guess they have done that, but it's like it took them Solar, Jetpack and Solar Jetman and all that were very popular on the ZX, and it took them how long? Like 20 years to make a sequel.
And they did. See like a pattern, I think, where you see maybe at most 3 games in their most popular series, and they move on. And
exactly.
And then at some point, when it gets long enough, then they'll go back and revisit, like they did with like Saberman or Jetpack.
Yep. The biggest thing, and I think I'm going to write a full write-up about this for the site, but just to touch on it, because I feel like I touch on it a lot, is that people's expectations of what Rare can possibly do right now are just way too high. Because you look at any of the annual studios, like the Infinity Wards, or I guess they're triannual now, but you know what I mean, like the studios that literally just work on one franchise forever. And 343, all they do is Halo. Look, Infinity Ward, all they do is Call of Duty, and there's a million others. Turn 10, all they do is Cars. Somehow Rare showed off that they could do all and more, and within short release windows with the N64. And so now people's expectations of what they can do are so unacceptably high that it's like, you guys, for one, they have fewer employees than most of those other studios, I think. Their team is considered on the smaller end of a AAA developer. They were right around 100. Now they're up to about, I think, 150 or 170. And you can't expect a team like that to be doing 2 big projects. You can probably expect the majority of them working on one project and then a small team working on another project. And that's obviously what happened with Rare Replay. It's obviously what happened with Jetman. Oh my God, what was the Xbox Live Arcade Jetman called?
Jetpack Refueled.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's embarrassing. But yes, that one.
It's all right.
I'm on rant mode. But it's just, I don't know why people. Well, I know why, but I don't. I wish people could give Rare some slack and understand more of what it takes to make a game, and like, this is going to be the Sea of Thieves studio for the next several years. Give it or love it or leave it. But that's from a standpoint of like what they can do. It's just realistic.
Yeah, well, I think they'll have some smaller titles out for sure. I don't know if they're going to
No,
mainly
that's what I
work on a
think
Sea
too.
of
But
Thieves too. It depends on how they're going to do it, because if it just becomes a very some sort of Minecraft-like experience where it's pretty
mhm.
much they're going to incrementally improve it and have Sea of Thieves be sort of a platform, then I
And
don't really
that's
think
their
they even need
roadmap.
to go into active development for a sequel right away. So they
No, no, I don't.
theoretically
I don't
could,
think there'll be a sequel.
yeah. So what I'd like to, well, I kind of hope is what I think they should do, because I know everything. I'm sure they know a lot more what they should do than me. While they're getting Sea of Thieves out, start work on a smaller project, get that smaller
Right.
project out, and then sort of have the small team be the Sea of Thieves new content and maintenance team, and
That's what
then
I see
put the
happening too.
primarily of them onto another brand new game.
I think, I mean, and that if Rockstar North is any example,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's exactly what they're doing there. I think the core team, the huge team put together, well, obviously it was all of Take-Two's studios, it seemed like, but really Rockstar North's core team was doing GTA 5. Once it was out the door, a small online core team is probably who's been working on GTA Online. And I'm sure that the vast majority of the studios working on GTA 6. Like, it would be dumb if they weren't. And I think that's what's going to happen with this. I think that they'll set up kind of a core few artists, a core few technical guys, and a couple designers, and they'll be the Sea of Thieves update team,
Right.
and then the rest of them will be repurposed to whatever the new project is.
Yeah, because I mean, just adding, DLC and new content to some game that already has all the groundwork laid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even I bet you there's even always anytime there's a game, there's going to be like probably a massive gigabytes of like unused assets that you have to draw from as well. So you
Yeah.
have anything that's already in the game, all those assets, the unused assets, and then enough people to create some new assets, and then you got
Mm-hmm.
enough right there to build tons of new
Totally.
content into a game without really
Yep.
throwing 100 people at it.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. It's gonna be like Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
You have your core team at Mojang, and then I'm sure there's just sub teams that kind of help do the ports to the consoles and mobile and stuff. Like I know 4J is doing the consoles, but there's got to be somebody at Mojang working with 4J.
Oh,
But
I'm sure.
yeah, so I'm sure, um, and this actually segues into another news thing that we didn't talk about before the show, but actually to touch on it. I don't know if you saw on Twitter this week that Craig Duncan and Louise O'Connor went over to Seattle and were meeting with execs, I assume. They were at least meeting at Microsoft and meeting other teams. Um, but you got to think, if they're not at Gamescom and she's in charge of incubation, they were probably pitching and or discussing their next IP or their
Right.
next project. So I thought that was kind of cool that almost unexpected that they were not at Gamescom.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting. Yeah, I'm excited what they do next, whether it's a new IP or
yeah,
a revisit.
I think just based on how Rare Replay worked and their statement of old new, I would almost bet money that it's an existing IP. As far as what it is, I think it's going to be a smaller Xbox Live Arcade style game. Could be totally wrong, but that's just if I was running the studio, that's what I would do. I would
Right.
just do
Yeah.
a XBLA Battletoads, honestly.
Yeah.
I think
Battletoads
that's
would
what
be
people
good.
want.
There's some other games I'd like to see too. Like I think we talked
Yeah,
a little bit about how something like Rocket League could be fun with rare
yeah,
characters.
something like
Yeah,
that.
I'd like to see like a rare character mega mix, or
Yeah,
maybe even
like
I don't know if Jet Force Gemini you could do as small, but I'd like to see a sequel to that. I think that would be
that would
a
be
game that
cool.
really
A third
needs.
person shooter would be
Yeah.
yeah. A third person space adventure would be fun. I think if Rare could do a take on Rocket League and make it their own, I
Hmm.
think combining it with some of the stuff they learned with nuts and bolts and allowing vehicle upgrades would really
Right.
change it, because right now Rocket League everybody's equal, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you could you could add a lot to that game by doing that, and I think Rocket League doesn't need that, but I think it would be cool if somebody was doing something similar but different to do something like that. And
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be radio controlled soccer, it can be something else, but I think the concept of it is really cool, and I think
Yeah.
they could
kind of
put their own spin on
yeah, I
it.
think any kind of competitive rare character game, whether it be more like Smash Brothers or Mario Kart or Rocket
Yeah,
League, I think any of those
yeah.
options would work. Maybe a combination of all three. Why
Right.
not?
Or even bringing back the Fast and the Furious in their own, not even
Right.
Fast and Furious, but just rare, rare all-star kart racing.
Yeah, I think it'd
Not
be
that Craig
interesting to
Duncan
see
doesn't
them
have
all.
experience with that already, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He was at Sumo when they did that.
It'd be fun to have them all exist in the same world again. Just kind of
Yeah.
hanging out. Rash and Joanna just playing cards or something. You have a cool little
Tell you
hub
what,
area where everyone hangs out.
I would, if a game like that did come out, I wouldn't say I would feel bad, but it'd be hilarious to see how our friends over at DK Vine would deal with all of Rare's characters being in one game, because that
They're like,
instantly makes
no.
every character DKU through Cameo, or whatever the hell
Yeah,
they have a crazy cool classification system, but it would just be funny to see how
yeah,
they
it would be
then
interesting. And I
have to
know,
cover
I
stuff.
know, Chris Alcock always seems to kind of reference DK Vine's fanon thing. So
They're
I wouldn't be
configuration.
surprised if like Chris Alcock would be an advocate of that just to screw with them.
For real. But yeah. Let's see. Other news this week. Do we want to move on to
Oh yeah,
stuff outside of Sea of Thieves?
yeah. Let's
Or
move on
take our
to
discussion
the
towards
ukulele
maybe.
Gamescom trailer. I would think.
Yeah, let's talk. Ukulele dropped a new trailer.
Yeah, it was. I like this one a lot better than the first trailer.
It's my favorite trailer they've put out.
Yeah, and the music was very. I liked the music to the first trailer,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought this one just seemed a much more. I don't know.
Unique?
Yeah, unique. It
Yeah,
was
not
definitely
so
Grant, but
recycled.
it was a very good Grant track, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's really good. It sounds like Banjo Kazooie track I've never heard before.
Right. Rather than a reused boss battle like the last trailer
Mm-hmm.
sounded like. No, it was a great trailer. It was in 60 frames per second, which looked really nice. With the exception of the minecart section, that was somehow dropped down to looked like the 30s, maybe 20s. Did we? I don't know that we got anything real new out of it. There was a new mechanic of the underwater bubble.
We
Was
like
a new
the,
mechanic.
I feel like at this point you could probably piece together what most of the levels are because they showed at least 2 new levels I think in there, right?
Looked like they showed maybe the quack core, or not the quack core, the Ivory Towers, like them sucking the books
Yeah,
into it.
and it's
That looked
also
like that
hard to
was
tell
new.
because we don't know how big the hub area is going to be.
Right.
Because theoretically, some of these areas we could be seeing could just be part of a large hub area because the banjo game,
Right.
the hub area changed
That's
so
what
much
I was
as it went
thinking.
along. So it's hard to say for sure. We know there's ice, we know that there's jungle, and
Mm-hmm.
there's looked to be kind of a factory-like level.
Industrial. Yep.
Industrial.
That's what I was picking up.
Um,
So yeah, I'm not sure what's what, but it was. We got some new views of the worlds, and the ice world just looks incredible. I cannot wait to see that and just play it.
It looks so
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, I forget. Is that Dean Wilson did the ice level? I don't remember. They were talking about it. The differences between I think it's Steve Hurst's levels and maybe Dean Wilson. I'm not sure. I try to keep up as best I can.
I didn't know. I didn't realize that Dean was using level design. I thought he was just doing assets, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe not full on like designing the level, but the art style of the level, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. I think I'd heard or seen that he had done the design of the snow level, like the kind of. He was the one who decided to put those weird accent lights, like the just random
Okay.
red light,
Oh.
and it just made it look really cool.
That would make sense because I feel like a lot of from what we've seen of the first world, to me that seems like an evolution of what we'd seen originally from the first
Mhm.
screenshots, and I
Yeah.
imagine that was mostly done before Dean came on because he came on a little bit later.
Right.
Dean's really good with rocks, apparently.
That's what they
I've
say.
heard.
Did you see Platonix? They retweeted somebody who pointed out a phallic light burst through the jungle. In
Oh
the
yeah, I
trailer.
saw that.
They're like, oh, he's at it again. It was funny.
Wasn't that Steve Hurst that originally did it in Banjo? Who was
That's
responsible?
I'm
for-
pretty sure it's Steve Hurst, unless I'm like just getting names crossed. And
Yeah.
if anyone from Platonic is listening, I apologize, but I think it's Steve Hurst.
We need to know who's responsible for the penises.
That's right. Chief penis officer.
Yeah, that's just like on his desk. You have like all about this and that. And you're like,
God.
penile expert.
Um, but yeah, no, it was pretty cool. The underwater breathing mechanic was an interesting concept to kind of have a bubble that you can actually walk underwater and do an obstacle course. We saw the new snowplow was a new transformation we hadn't seen. Um, Pretty ironic considering the the jab at the team after I think the end of the last trailer where they said careful, they'll add a car section, and then in this trailer there's a car section. So I thought that was hilarious. We know that that's a jab at themselves. Everyone else thinks it's a jab at Rare.
I feel like people just really don't get their humor. To me,
That's
it's the
what it
same
is.
exact humor that they've had like throughout the whole time. You'd even see it. It's in
Yeah,
nuts and bolts too.
right. No,
Immediately
it
you get into
totally
nuts and
is.
bolts, and they start making fun of the last two games.
The difference is they know it's making fun of themselves, and when it was
Hmm.
produced by Rare, it was making fun of themselves. But when it's produced by a different company, it then becomes a jab, and it's
Right.
like they're friends. They make fun of each other just like we make fun of each other, and yet somehow it's seen hostile because of the narrative that's been built up in the fan community, and that's the most unfortunate part. And I think that's what Kevin and I kind of
Yeah.
and Chad from DK Vine, kind of the three of us talk about that a lot. Um, it,
I,
it doesn't help the narrative, and it sucks.
yeah, it
But
doesn't. I just wish. I think if people would be more educated, it would be perfectly fine.
that's what it comes down to. And
Because
that's
I think
exactly it.
most of the jokes are funny, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of would equally bother me if Platonic felt like they had to like censor themselves and walk on thin ice
Right.
because of these
Be
people are
nice
gonna like.
to pour down Rare, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I see what you're getting at, and I
Yeah,
agree in
it's.
that regard.
I'm hoping it's just something that naturally goes away on its own once both games are out, you know,
Exactly.
and people get away from this rare is bad thing, and
Mm-hmm.
then it'll seem a lot more innocent as long as people can just, I don't know,
Yeah.
stop taking video games so seriously and getting angry about things. God.
Yeah. Uh. So okay, ukulele trailer was good. Nothing else. Just says Q1 217. 2017. And then other news we got. Let's see. Well, there was part two of Lee Loveday's Rare Replay making of article.
Some cool new UI shots that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, this article kind of went in depth about the kind of front end or the menu system, as a standard person might call it, um, and that they had a few different ideas for that as far as making it look like different arcade cabinets that it would zoom into to play. I thought that was a really cool concept. There's some floating abstract either game art or one of them showed box art, which was really cool. Um, just very compilation feeling. Like that's how I would do a compilation if I was doing one. Was kind of seeing those.
Yeah, I liked the one where they're all like the. Well, I liked a lot of them. All of these look pretty good.
Yeah, they all would have
It,
worked great. I think.
yeah, the one that was kind of had like floating island, almost looked like floating islands, was kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
It'd be interesting too if they had like almost like I don't know. I'm totally going off on a tangent, but like wouldn't this be almost like a playable select screen? Can think of
Mm-hmm.
kind of like
Kind of
something
like a
like
mini
Sonic
game.
Jam for the Saturn or Nintendo Land, where you have like a hub and get to go to each
Yeah.
game
Yep.
physically.
That that
But,
would have been cool. As the article alludes to, it part of the challenge of this game was that it was built in 9 months, and
right.
to
That, that,
make a
that would
good
have been
front
nice.
end that didn't look like it was hastily thrown together, you needed to figure out something that you could do quickly. And I think they explained as that article goes along, they got down to a design where it was all the games laid out, I think, similar to how they are in the final build, but on a blueprint, similar to the Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts first trailers,
Hmm.
and that they were talking about the older games would be a little kind of sketchy and lower resolution maybe and wobbly lines, and as you moved across to the right to the more modern stuff, the HD era, etc., you kind of would get sharper lines, you know, straight edges,
Yeah,
things like that. And I thought that was cool. But they said that essentially stuck out till almost the end, and then they switched over to the what is it, vignette? Is that the right term for
I don't know. I think
stage
they did
show
at the end make the
cutouts?
right choice. Because a lot of the
Oh
other
yeah,
ones looked cool, but they still kind of felt a little bit like stuff you would see in an emulator front end in some ways.
yeah,
Like
that's
it
true. I mean,
wasn't as unique. The way they
we
did
know
it
they would
now
have
felt like
refined
They would have refined it, but yeah,
Yeah.
having the way it's presented now is like completely unique from any other kind of like
Right.
game selection
Works
I've ever
so
seen.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's probably why like I like seeing the box art, but that
Hmm.
is probably that's not going to look that much different from someone running RetroArch off of a
Right.
computer.
Just putting the
It's
thumbnail.
going to look very similar to that. I think with that method, and going with this sort of like especially cool because it kind of reminds me of like the pictures I've seen of the hallways at Rare itself, with all of the
Yep. Put a gold frame
all
around
the
it.
frames, all the gold frames around it. Yeah, it's really neat because it feels like you're
it
getting like a slice of the studio too.
it yeah, in that regard, and obviously having been there, it is exactly that. When we walked down, there's just these two hallways that have those framed pictures, and as we were walking down them, I just was thinking to myself like, oh my god, I'm in the Rare Replay front end right now, like
Right.
in real life. It was really cool, and it was yet another homage to their history and their studio, and even without probably 99% of the public even realizing it, which is cool. Um, Along those lines, in picking the kind of theater, what do you call it? Like the theater aesthetic, is kind of helped them settle on that introduction song by Robin Beanland, and
Mm-hmm.
is pretty cool. Like they talk a little bit more in this article about the music and the arrangements were done a little bit with Robin and some other music guys from I guess Nimrod Productions, Nimrod Studios,
Mm-hmm.
external helpers, and then the intro sequence was animated by a third-party animation studio, but was laid out by I guess Paul Collins and the design team. Um,
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
it's really amazing that this whole thing is put together in 9 months.
Right, and in this era, this modern HD
Yeah,
era, like that's
like
incredible.
and have it feel that good and that polished in that amount of
Right,
time.
with 30 games that all had to be tested, all the emulators had to be optimized, all the port of freaking Ghoulies had to be done. Like it's just incredible what they pulled off.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
I
and
still do
then
hope we get a follow up one day.
yeah, I know.
In some ways,
I hope so too. I don't know
because
when it would be.
there's still a lot of games I'd like to see, and
Yep.
you could probably, if you're willing to rework, spend more time than just 9 months, you could probably even get like the first two Connect Sports games on there.
Right. They could easily.
You would have to
port those.
essentially port them because the boosted
Yeah.
versions wouldn't work.
Just kind of do one to one. I think at this point that would almost be a lost cause since the new Xboxes aren't even sold with Kinects.
That's true.
And they put all their heavy hitters in this one, so it would be really hard to get people excited to buy it if it's got is like Taboo,
no.
Sixth Sense, and Marble, whatever, and
Yeah,
you know
there'd be quite a lot. I think maybe a DLC pack would be more appropriate.
DLC pack would make the most sense. Like call it the Rare Replay Anniversary DLC or something.
Yeah,
Do it in 5 years. Put
because there's
Live and Reloaded
still a
in
few
there.
that I think really need to be released, particularly Live and Reloaded. I'd like to see
Ported,
find some
yeah.
way to get the two Connect Sports titles on there because I've never played them. I know it's not going to be a selling point for most people, but I'd still like to experience them.
Probably put all three of them on there, honestly, because not that many people bought the Xbox One version anyway, and you might as well just include it in a bundle.
That's
like
true.
this.
And you could easily do the same thing with Killer Instinct 1 and 2 Arcade. They're both already ported.
Right. Yep.
You just have to make another store entry for them, like you did for the other one. Put the Rare Replay
Right.
overlay on the title card and include it with that version. So you could get all three Connect Sports: Killer Instinct 1 and 2, Conquer Live and Reloaded.
Right. More Battletoads, different Battletoads.
The missing Battletoads games. Mainly Battle Maniac seems like the biggest.
They really should put
absence.
the Killer Instinct arcade ones on there, like with the fully 3D rendered characters and backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something that really not a whole lot of people have played. Anybody that's not played the arcade machine has never played that version, and that's like the highest quality version.
I mean, I think initially it made sense not to include them because they were already on Xbox One. It's like we want because now those games are already available.
The arcade one?
Killer Instinct 1 and 2.
Yeah, are those available?
Yeah, they're on Xbox One. I have them.
Oh Jesus! I thought they only put like the Super Nintendo one and like.
No,
you
don't
mind me.
The Ultra Combo editions of Season 2 and 3, or I'm sorry, 1 and 2 of the New Killer Instinct, you get them. Or if you just buy like the big Definite Edition, I think you get them.
Did not even know that.
They're the arcade versions, and they
cool.
Have, like, there's a few little There's like some few you can put like the same what do you call them the things that go on the side, the borders, borders.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah,
the
there's
cabinet
borders and filter options and stuff too. So,
Wow,
and,
I really
and net
I
play.
don't
They
know
added
how I
net play
didn't
to them.
know that. I am embarrassed
Yeah.
once more, and I take back what I said earlier.
It's all right.
But yeah, I mean, there's just tons of stuff they could still put out, and I would love to see them do a licensing deal with Nintendo and just release it on both Nintendo and put it on the
Oh
NX
God.
and the Xbox, because we know the precedent is there with Minecraft that Microsoft Studios is willing to publish to both, and then just work out the deal with Nintendo and get Donkey Kong on there, get some of the other stuff like that, Star Fox
Hey,
Adventures.
they let Atari have Donkey Kong back in the day. Wake up.
Right. No, it seems like all the pieces are there, and that Microsoft is more than willing to do it. Nintendo is being obviously Nintendo publishing to smartphones is a step in the right direction for them being more open. You know, so
Yeah.
it would be amazing.
I think Nintendo, what they're probably worried about, they feel that their only sort of reason that they sell consoles is that these characters are only on these consoles. I think that's
Right.
gonna be the
Well,
biggest draw. But yeah, GoldenEye and Donkey Kong Country, like
yep.
without
GoldenEye
those
was
games
the
released.
what was it?
That's
The
even hard.
unicorn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's even more issues with freaking
Yeah.
GoldenEye. Even though in some ways I think that's probably more likely to happen than Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if just the right publisher buys the rights to it, they can
I
muscle
don't even
it.
know who has the bond
I
license
don't know who
anymore.
does anymore. It
I
was
don't think it's Activision.
EA and
I
Activision
was
throughout the
reading
2000s.
that it ran
right?
out, so I don't
Yeah,
know who
I have
has it.
no idea.
So yeah, it's
too
like
bad.
every
It's a good
time
license.
I feel like Nintendo might be open to it now, but
Yeah.
now probably the publisher isn't. So it's
It
like
it would have made so much sense to do it for like the Bond 50th anniversary,
Mhm.
which I think was Skyfall, but that's past, well past.
I mean, look how much interest this new update to GoldenEye Source mod is getting.
Oh, for real.
It's like
Yeah.
people want this. I'm hoping that eventually people will see that there's enough want that all the required parties are like, okay, maybe we should get down and do something. I mean, there's already a completed version of the game sitting at where
Right.
what we know,
And
so it's like, oh
yeah.
hey, we could just polish this a little bit more, port it over
Right.
to
Upres a couple
X1.
of textures. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it's so annoying.
and
so
now we're at the
frustrating.
point too where it's like the NX would probably have the power to play pretty much the same game without a compromise.
Well, it was the
Where it
360 version, so yeah, it definitely could.
Yeah, I mean, they'd obviously probably, touch it up even more if they were going to
Mhm.
port it over to X1.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
still, it could probably play
Well, if you
fairly
start
the
with that
same.
as the
It's not
base,
going to be
yeah.
the same as where it was before, where they'd have to get a virtual console version and then Xbox
Mhm.
would get this fancy version.
Yeah,
It'd be
they
more
could
or less
run
similar
the real
experience.
version. Yeah. It's a shame.
One day.
But the other thing is like you I almost fear that people are gonna get it and realize, oh yeah, first person shooters have come a really long way since this. It's just
Right.
maybe some rose tinted glasses, but
I
would still be happy with it.
Oh yeah, I've played it recently on emulator, and I've purchased it before. I have the
Yeah.
cartridge, so don't yell at me.
Yeah.
But I like to play things on my HD set, so that's primarily the reason I want to use emulators still for N64 games.
Yeah.
But to me, it was still really fun. Like
You're right. It is. It holds up well for what it is.
yeah,
But
and there's like that
younger
style of
gamers may not know.
FPS pretty much doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
There's very few games you can find that compare. It's either like completely open world quest based FPSs or the very sort of linear tunnel based.
Right.
And I guess the new Doom I've heard is pretty good, but that's still almost an additional style. you know.
Yeah. I haven't played that one, so I'm not sure. But yeah, I would guess it's the most similar.
Yeah.
And Halo's kind of clung to some of those older mechanics that were established back then.
A little bit, but it seems to be going more and more away with that with each iteration.
Yeah. Each
Whereas,
Which
because I
haven't
liked
played.
this sort of, because to me, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, they're like almost mini sandboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still sort of a sense of moving forward, but you can always go back, and sometimes you'll miss things and have to go back.
Right.
You sort of have objectives, but it's not like this huge open world where you get
They're-
overwhelmed.
Right. Their
Lose your
design was
focus. Yeah, it's
so good.
perfect.
Yeah.
Like I
Their
love
design was
the-
just so good in that, some of the interviews that have come since was like they built the levels and then they decided what would be fun to do in the level.
Mm-hmm.
And for a first-person shooter to do it that way rather than plan a mission and then just build a corridor around that, which is what Call of Duty does, like it's and corridor being anything from like a city to a actual little corridor, but you're basically just getting facades in Call of Duty. You can't go around this alley. Everything's got, there's a
Right.
crashed Jeep. You can't go down that alley. You've got a barricade. You can't go down that alley. You pretty much can only go towards your objective, and it sucks. It's
Yeah,
an
but
illusion.
they'll usually give you a little bit of freedom to find, like a collectible.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hey, I can go this way. There's not the mission. I bet you there's a collectible down here.
Well, and you can go down like 3 different alleyways
Yeah.
to choose to flank or
So,
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the game. Some Call of Duties have got a little bit more open, but
Mhm.
it's different. And honestly, I like Call of Duty for what it is. I don't really want that.
Oh,
to
I do too.
change.
Yeah, it's a great series for what it is, and I enjoy it
Yeah.
still.
It's. I think the problem is that we've seen the other styles disappear rather than
Right.
Hey.
Everybody tries to adapt.
yeah.
To
It's
that.
like why can't Call of Duty be Call of Duty? Doom is finally Doom again, which I
Right.
like that. Oh, cool. Now
See,
we got
then-
that style back. So why can't we have sort of the GoldenEye Perfect Dark Time Splitters style back
Well,
as well?
The way that retro trends have been going in the industry, like I wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised if that starts happening the next couple years. And then you've got stuff like Titanfall that's trying something new and then gets rejected by the public. So it's like how do you take that risk and not risk
Mhm.
losing a bunch of money? Because that's what the bottom line is for any publisher is, will it sell? Like that's why we weren't getting
Right.
Banjo-Kazooie 3. That's why we got Nuts and Bolts. Rare, not the publisher, but Rare themselves thinking, well, we need to do something that's new and different, because platformers in and of themselves aren't selling too well these days, and it sucked. But I like the end product.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of it's like how much does this cost versus how much it's going to sell. Like I think you can
Mhm.
get away with like 3D platformers. I think can come back now pretty easily.
Yeah.
Because of they're not
For a little
gonna be
bit.
as expensive.
Until they get oversaturated, and then
Yeah.
they'll stop selling again, and people will think it's because they because people don't want them, but it's because people want quality ones and not cash cow grab-ins that are
Right.
so common, which is what happened in the 2000s after the Banjos. It was just several platformers that were not to that level, that just wanted to piggyback on, like, oh, this is like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, so it must be good, but
Yeah.
it's not.
I feel like we're starting to get that way with certain FPSs and open world games. It's like
Mhm.
that's all there is now. We're getting kind of a lot of not so good ones.
That and 8-bit throwbacks, like pretty much half the games with gold games. I've given most of them a shot, and I just they're not they don't grab me the way they should, or that I feel like they should. They're not terrible games, but they're not exceptional.
Yeah, it's like there's a
2D
bunch of
side
gems in between, like just a bunch of like shovelware. I hate to
That's
say that
what
because
it
a
is.
lot of them have a lot of time and effort put into it. But
Right.
I think there's also what's really strange about a lot of the throwback games too is there also is like this weird pressure to be very very different at the same time of being nostalgic. So it's like this looks like an old game, but it
have
doesn't
a
really
hook.
play like an old game.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
That's what it
Like,
comes
I
down to,
don't-
and it's especially with indie games. It's like they're putting their heart and soul into it to try and make it better. True shovelware is made by publishers that are just trying to get money.
Yeah.
But most indie games, even if they're classified as shovelware, they're the person making them is really trying hard usually,
Yeah.
like because it's a passion project or a
And
side thing.
Some succeed very well. Like I haven't played Shovel Knight, but that's one of the few that I
That's
actually
what I've
want to
heard,
play because
Yeah, same.
It actually looks like the correct style. They
Yeah.
didn't get it. It looks like kind of reminds me of like the old DuckTales games mixed with like another platform
Right,
or Mega Man or something.
exactly.
It looks like something that could have been released in the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of more what I want to see from like throwback games is actually
Totally.
make them throwback games. Like I don't need to rewind
Like Raging
time
Justice
or
is a perfect
anything crazy
example.
like that.
Yeah, Raging Justice is exactly that. It's done in the throwback style. It's done in the throwback way.
Mhm.
But Nick Makin is putting in new things that he can do and new effects and
Yeah.
stuff, but not to the degree of what you're seeing with other people. I
And
think
that's what I really like to see from the throwback games.
God,
The ones that I enjoy, other ones that take retro concepts and evolve them,
Mhm.
rather than just sort of being super gimmicky and look how indie we are type
Yeah.
games. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about indie games because it's like I like the idea of them. I just feel like a lot of times, sometimes having direction from publishers helps them
Yeah,
more.
it's a double-edged sword, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
like sometimes publishers do know what they're talking about. Very often they'll stifle the creative process because of deadlines and budget, but they're not always wrong. Like they have a lot of research and a lot of
yeah,
experience. You know, it's a fine dance to do.
yeah. 'Cause sometimes it's like they could have like, hey, that's a bad idea. And
Yeah.
then with an indie developer, when you're making something yourself, sometimes you can't see that, and they're like, "No, this is a
Right.
good idea." So I'm going to invest 4 hours of my, or like 4 years of my life doing this, when the
Hmm.
end result's not going to be very good.
Right.
So it's
Yep.
definitely. I don't like the way the AAA industry kind of conducts itself either,
Right.
because of deadlines and crunch and
Right.
all that stuff tends to produce very very
It it shows in the
bland
final
games.
product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it can be polished, but the sort of creativity can feel very stifled.
Hmm.
And I do think it's gotten better lately in that regard.
I think the industry as a whole, a lot of the big players are aware of it and are trying to correct it as best they can without losing the bottom line. So, yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like I've, like even with the annual games, it's like,
Hmm.
hey, we need more people doing this because this is not working. Like with Call of
Right.
Duty, it's now 3 developers with 3 year dev times,
Right. Right.
and
That was a good
Assassin's
step.
Creed has stopped doing every single year, and now they're kind of like Assassin's Creed Syndicate wasn't the Montreal studio. I forget which one it is. Maybe Quebec,
I don't know.
which is the first mainline series not to have the Montreal logo on it. So it's like not only they're not doing it every year, but apparently they're letting
They're kind
the
of shifting it around. Yeah.
yeah, shifting it around a little bit, so it's not just
Well,
that.
yeah, I read an interview with or I think it was a blog post by a former
Mm-hmm.
employee of Ubisoft, and how for Unity they were literally working, they were following the sun. So like, one studio would be working on it during European time, like the Paris studio, and then they would check in the code at night, and then the Montreal studio would check it out, do their work on it, and then check it in, and then I don't know, some probably Japanese
Right.
Ubisoft, somebody over in the East, either India or Japan or whatever, was working on it on the other off hours. And it was like they were doing 3 full shifts on the game, 24-hour development, but then you get, inconsistencies and
Right.
miscommunications, and it's an interesting concept.
'Cause
Obviously, Rockstar North did the same thing with GTA
yeah,
5.
I think Montreal was leading the whole thing, but
Yeah.
just having that amount of people, because I think it's like gets close to like 1,000 people in some of those Assassin's Creed games the way they were doing it.
Right.
And now they seems to have like realized that hey, maybe we should slow down and we'll get better products.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Put quality time into it. And,
mm-hmm.
this guy was talking about the whole reason for his blog post was talking about going from AAA and then moving to indie. But he's talking about, he's like, I'm glad I did AAA work. He goes, but in the grand scheme, I was such a little cog, and my whole thing was literally placing street lamps in Assassin's Creed Unity. I'm just like, damn. Like, he goes, in the grand scheme, I could have put it here, I could have put it there, and nobody gives a shit. Like,
Right.
it's true. You know, as a designer, an environmental designer, but it needs to get done, and somebody has to do it, but it's not the
Yeah. I think that's why I don't think I would ever really want to be in part of if I was a game dev, part of these big open world games,
Mhm.
because there's just going to be so much of that.
Yeah,
Place
yeah,
place asset here over and over again,
right. Or
because
come
it's
up with a
so
system.
open ended and unfocused. There's not really
Yeah,
most actual design work is just going to be go for a small amount of people who do the missions.
right, right. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm
Yeah,
optimistic, and as I said, I think things have already gotten better. And if you, and I think we were talking about this other day how like you just start to see more lately in the past maybe only
yeah,
2 or 3 years you start to see creativity
mm-hmm.
in
Creative
games that
risks
they
and
haven't really been as much of, and it's like people are starting to realize that hey, we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again.
right.
Overworked employees, half of whom
I
will probably leave and form their own studios where they have better projects.
right.
So
I
let's
I would love to see more studios do different genres of games.
right.
You know, like the Rare of the '90s. Because even Criterion didn't they do a first-person shooter after like Burnout
Yeah.
2 or 3?
I'm
Like,
excited to see what that Respawn's doing a Star Wars game.
right, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that was cool. It's like, oh, that's gonna be
It's
interesting because
super
it's like
exciting. And
everyone assumed that Respawn is just gonna be is like Infinity Ward Part Two kind of,
hmm
But now they're like, hey, we're gonna do something else. We're gonna do a Star Wars game. Probably not even a
yeah.
first-person shooter.
Real quick tangent on the Star Wars game. I just saw a video this week, and I don't know if it's a new video or if I just somebody posted it and I saw it. It was sort of a mini documentary about Factor 5.
hmm
Um, I had not realized they had, around at that time they went bankrupt in the late 2000s. They had finished a Rogue Squadron collection for Wii.
Oh, I
I mean,
heard about that.
100%
Yeah,
finished. Um, and it just didn't get released. It's like, what?
that's so
I had no
sad.
idea. It was like a full, optimization, new engine, and all the old missions plus new stuff. I was like, dude, had a had an entire lightsaber mode. It was for the Wii Motion Plus.
No,
Um,
they absolutely. I'm sure that'll never get released, but they
no,
absolutely need to do another Rogue Squadron game.
it was
Those games
it,
were so fun.
it was so disappointing to find that out. Like, I don't know. I guess I just wasn't following the industry close enough in the late 2000s, but I had no idea that they had gotten that far on it. I thought they
Yeah,
had just there was always the rumor that they were working on like the new Pilot Wings game and like, oh, we're not sure what Factor 5 is working on. So I didn't think they actually had anything out of prototype.
yeah. I didn't realize either until
But
I heard about that
did you see that
this week.
video or
I
have
didn't
you?
watch the video. I saw the news articles pop up about it. I didn't get a chance
Okay,
to watch it
yeah.
yet though.
It's excellent. It is very insightful and I had no idea how crazy and political it got at the time. Um, so
There is so many great Star Wars games that got canceled.
I
I mean,
know it's so stupid.
there's Battlefield. There's the original Battlefront 3 from
Right.
Free Radical, the Rogue Squadron stuff.
Right.
That Underworld. What was it called?
Oh yeah.
The level
Yep.
something
The,
whatever the
the
Coruscant Underworld game.
that one, and then was it 2020? I don't know. There was one with a number on it.
Well, I mean, yeah. I guess the good news is that that Star Wars is probably going to become an annual franchise. It's
Yeah,
just
I
it's
think Disney's done good restructuring it into a
yeah.
licensing thing, and I think
Like
now that all the licensing deals are
mhm.
set up and the studios are working on them, I think we're in a better place than we were when they
Yeah,
just
there's so
mass
many Star
canceled
Wars
everything.
games being made right now. It's just that
Yeah.
it's like they're we're kind of in a drought right now because they really pushed out the first Battlefront to get something out, so there was a new Star Wars game.
Yeah. That game was not finished.
Yeah,
It was
I
to meet the movie release.
hmm
That's all it
yeah,
was.
the DLC is vastly improved, and I'm really excited
Yeah.
about the Death Star DLC. Sounds freaking awesome. That's coming
I need
out.
to get. I
You can
need
do
to
the
get the
trench run
DLC.
and stuff.
Right, and space battles, like,
Yeah,
ah,
that looks awesome. But it's like it's clearly has been a work in progress. By the time
right.
it ends, it'll be a
It's
complete game. But
too bad that
yeah,
the updates weren't free, that you had to do the season pass, because these are what should have been in the original game, and I think it's a bit of a ripoff.
I think
But
I understand that with the amount of content that's included in the season pass. I understand it being $50, but the base
right, and man
game shouldn't have
hours.
been.
Yeah.
The base game should have been less. Like to
Right.
compensate. Like, yeah, the majority of the content's going to be in the season pass, so maybe you pay $30 now.
That's what it
That
should
would
have
have
been.
been
It should have been
reasonable.
buy the platform for
Yeah.
for half price. Because there was like hardly anything to that fucking game when it came out. Excuse my language, but like it was so frustrating. It was like, oh, there's a couple maps, a couple missions, a couple modes, no campaign. Like,
hmm
oh, okay, and I'm gonna pay $60 for this? No. Luckily, I got mine copy for 40, but still, like,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm so amped at Star Wars at the time, and I'm always amped on Star Wars. But
right,
even more
yeah.
so then, that's why I picked it up. It's like,
If I'd had the cash at the time, I would have done it too. So I
yeah.
understand. But
So, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to end up with probably, twice as many planets and twice as many heroes as that it started,
right.
which is kind of crazy. It's like, oh, that's like half the game that didn't get released at launch.
Yeah. I would love to see Rare do a licensed Star Wars game. They've always been so good at licensed games and
Mhm.
putting the attention to detail that the fans demand into it because of how they operate as a group. Obviously GoldenEye being the poster child for that. Um, I don't know that we'll ever see another licensed game from Rare, but I would love to see them work on Star Wars.
Yeah,
I think that would be so
that would
cool.
have been that would have been fun. Yeah, the Bound license, Nintendo Donkey Kong license. The one thing I wish they'd
Those,
never
yeah, I
really
guess those
done
are
more
licensed
with
games.
was is like they kind of I felt like they half-assed the Disney license a little bit.
Yeah, they could have done a lot more. I'm not sure
Like,
what the deal was there.
you have
if
the
it was
Disney
just
license?
rushed by
Okay,
the
we're gonna
publisher.
make Mickey Mouse racing games.
Which could have been fine if it had been as good as Diddy Kong Racing. It would
Yeah,
have been
I thought it was
excellent.
pretty
Or like
good,
put
but to
some
me, it's
platforming
like
in it or something.
you have the Disney license, and the only thing you choose to do is Mickey Mouse. Like, there's so
Well,
much more they could have done.
and I think they were, but remember that I don't know if you remember the deal was a 7-game deal
Oh,
with
was it?
Rare and Nintendo and Disney, but that was inked in like 2000 or 99, and obviously the buyout happened, so it just didn't come to pass, which
Right.
is too bad.
I think something like Kingdom Hearts would have been, well, not exactly like Kingdom Hearts, but the same
Right,
idea, where you create like this whole world with all the Disney characters, and you could even throw some of the Rare characters in together. That would
right,
have been
or
really fun,
Nintendo,
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
would have been cool if they had stuck it out and had quote unquote the Disney team at Rare.
Hmm.
I'm sure that's what the barn would have become known as if they had done 7 games. Um, and they did 3 of them because technically the 2 GBA ones were part of that deal, but
Yeah.
4 of them never happened. I
Oh
don't know
well.
if Nintendo at that point would have just released them. I don't remember what was happening because there was that one from Capcom that was a launch title for the GameCube, Magical Mirror, I think. That might have just been a transfer of the contract
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
because it was published by Nintendo. But
Like I liked Mickey's Speedway USA. It was pretty
I
cool,
love that
I
game.
thought.
It's not
Yeah,
it's not Diddy Kong Racing, but it's a good, fun little kart
it's
racer.
still a really good kart racer.
And again, the
And
attention to detail and all the voice actors and all that was really exceptional for the time. The art direction is really nice.
in the what was it, one that actually you can walk around in, I thought that for a Game Boy Color game, that was still pretty good.
Oh
Like,
yeah, Mickey's Racing Adventure. I
Mickey's
never
Racing
played
Adventure.
never played any of those.
The Game Boy Color version of Speedway USA's kind of
Mhm.
well, not bad. It feels like RC Pro-Am with a Disney skin.
Right.
Well, the Mickey's Racing Adventure one, they actually went kind of above the Call of Duty with it a little bit. With the animation looks really good, especially when
Gotcha.
you're walking around for a Game Boy Color game.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yep.
They did a good job on what they did, but
Yep.
I just felt
Could
the
have been
license
so much
was
more.
there.
And as a
Yeah.
Disney fan, like yeah, I feel you. Is there any more news or any other items we were going to cover this
I
week?
don't think so. I think we've kind of getting pretty close to the end. So
Yeah, I think we're at a good time, good stopping point.
yeah, a lot of tangents. Hope we didn't bore you, but it's all right.
I guess the last bit of news, which we don't even need to talk about, was that Sea of Thieves has won a few awards already at Gamescom. And Gamescom goes through to tomorrow, Sunday, which if you're listening to this, it's probably Sunday already. But I thought that was exciting. It's good to see them winning like best multiplayer game at Gamescom and best Xbox game at Gamescom. So it's pretty cool. And Ukulele, I think, won as well, or multiple.
Yep. And
So.
they're well deserved. So
Yes.
bravo. Everyone's doing a great job.
Great to see Rare and the Rare friends all succeeding. It makes us very happy.
Group hug.
And
All right.
with that,
But I
can
call it a day.
call it a day.
Hope you
And
guys,
thanks for listening.
Yeah.
As always, follow us, like, subscribe, YouTube. We're also on iTunes. Rate
Yeah.
us. I don't think
All
we
those
grasp-
things I keep forgetting.
We don't
guys.
ever do any due diligence, but please do. Follow us on Twitter,
Mhm.
Rare and Friends. Got a Facebook page if you're into that. And of course, our website, rarefriends.net.
And YouTube. Subscribe
And
to
YouTube. I think that's what I started with. Yep.
Oh, I missed
So.
that. I'm sorry.
That's where the like and subscribe moniker
Oh,
comes
that's
from.
right. True.
But then I said iTunes after that. But yes, YouTube. We will try to get more content up there and start covering stuff as best we can. Maybe some Sea of Thieves streams with the staff. We'll see what happens when that's made available.
Could be fun.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you guys have a great weekend.